Hello people of the internet, it's your boy, Skinny Penis, with the Minnow replay from yesterday's stream, the unfortunate failure of 500k damage. And yeah, uh, obviously I decided to upload it since it's my highest damage record, but it gives us the opportunity to talk about arms race as a mode and what it implicates, and also if I like it or not, and also damage records since arms race has been introduced. Yeah, so what exactly happened here? Essentially, after they introduced arms race, I played like 4 or 5,000 random games, and finally, after that pretty large amount of games, I got this one crazy perfect arms race game 2, where the enemy team just essentially camps, doesn't int, my team ints and camps. No one really does damage to each other because they're all essentially vegans or pacifists, and essentially it's all up to me to farm. And on top of that, I get like a triple heal and a triple reload buff very early on, so I also get the DPM, and the enemy also gets heal buffs and HP increases, so there's like way more HP, way more damage. And then you can also look at the matchmaking. Also, the ships that are played are not necessarily something that is that scary, so I'm not like in an arms race game with a bunch of super ships and stuff. Obviously, since I'm playing minnow, submarines are in general like really toxic. Um, you can talk about the fact that Brisbane has a plane-based ASW, but minnow ASW is like one of the worst, and since submarines also have an easy time spotting you, like that's really just the biggest thing here. Like I could live with the fact that I can't deal anything or do anything to subs, because I also have AP, which doesn't do a lot. Like SAP and HE are what you want to shoot at submarines that are surfaced. AP doesn't really do a lot. Um, and the bigger problem is that 6-9 AA range means obviously 6-9 air conceal, because they don't allow stealth AA anymore on cruisers and battleships. So my air detection is hilariously dogshit on this cruiser, and that's a problem because submarines can just free spot me. But yeah, so apart from the submarine, everything is perfect though. Like you will see, my side here essentially just sits around and dies. The enemy's ships just sit around and get farmed. And you will also see that I just reached this spot. I will spam from this island, and after about like 6-7 minutes I have like 200k. I mean, I have 200k after moving out of it, but from this island alone I will do like 150, I think. Just spamming people. And yeah. So, arms race, I personally despise the mode. I think it's spastic. It's actually like a piece of trash mode. It's not suited for randoms. First of all, it completely changes the damage numbers. I mean, average damage numbers and stuff aren't really affected by it at all, because first of all, you get the mode very limited amounts, in very limited amount of cases or times, and most of the arms race game are blowout losses, which is like the next thing why I think it's trash. The arms race mode is essentially just a big RNG shit fiesta if you get it in the first place, if you get it with the correct matchmaking, and then if you have this 1 out of 10 games that's not a blowout win or a blowout loss. Because what these arms race games most likely end up being is your destroyers or the enemy destroyers inting in bulk on the juicy banana. And I mean, the banana meme is quite funny and all, but I mean it's the truth. Like I just essentially found a nice funny metaphor for saying that destroyer players have no brain at all, and wargaming is not trying to essentially structure arms race in a more controlled manner, because currently it's the way, if you have certain ships, especially destroyers or cruisers, and if you have a certain amount of team play and the enemy doesn't, you're just winning outright. There's certain ships that are insanely toxic and busted as to getting these buffs, where especially like divisions scale way harder. Because now you don't only get an objective that the enemy could just potentially ignore for 5 minutes or so. No, you might just get a reload buff and a damage buff because you're playing like your fucking Regulo Moskva. It's like the most toxic combination most likely, like Regulo Moskva against no radar. Like, what is the enemy DD supposed to do? He can't go near the buff while your Regulo can run into it with Moscow radar. Like, shit like that, it's just demented. The next thing is the buff spawns are completely randomized, which is absolutely tragic. Like, essentially, I said most games are ending up being a turbo stomp, right? But like half of those stomp games could maybe be salvaged or go on for longer if the buff would spawn in a controlled and essentially like normally distributed way. But no, they're completely random, so if you lose one flank, the game might spurg out and randomly decide to spawn all the buffs on that flank, or most of the buffs. Like on this game, like we have a lot of in the middle, sure, which is the hardest buffs to get, but then the other side completely lost in our team, kind of. If they would spawn more buffs now on the 8, 9, 10 line, we would lose all of them. Like, they could collect them for free. This is a disaster. Why the fuck is it like that? Also, personally, I'm with the destroyers inting for the buffs. I don't understand why the first two buffs, or in general, there are not more buff zones spawned the way the reload buff here is spawned. Like in the beginning, there's always one buff that anyone can easily collect on one flank because it's a split buff. Both sides get the buff very close to their own spawn or like own territory position, so you can always collect it for free, most likely. Obviously, random players are sometimes so bad that they don't even collect that shit. But why are the first four buffs not split into two of these kinds? Like both teams can collect one buff each. Why do we have to have buffs that are ready to be collected after 1.5 minutes of game time? Why do we have them spawn completely inside of the middle of the map, which essentially means there's going to be people inting for it. There's going to be a bunch of retards running at it, killing each other, fucking getting one shot out, cruisers being in the middle of the map trying to, I don't know, support, trying to get the buff themselves, getting one shot by battleships that couldn't even leave spawn because it's way too early, fucking destroyers just running it in, like head first, even though the buff is way too deep. Like, look, I'm a pretty decent player. These positions where these middle buffs spawn on most maps are completely unorthodox, or like completely unrealistic for a DD to reach. Like, you would never go there in a normal game of like, what is it? In most ships, at least, in most matchmakings, like you would never go there because World of Warships is all about calculating a risk, essentially, or like calculating your move and the risk and the reward. Like you try to obviously always make moves that have like very, very, very low risk or no risk at all because you like managed to calculate it in your head beforehand. You have taken everything into consideration. Then you go for the move and you try to get the highest payout. That's essentially it. If it's a ship versus ship, like, okay, I'm this ship, I can fuck this ship. Or if it's just like, if I'm in this position, I can't be shot by like most of the enemy team, and I can only be shot by the enemy DD. So I can take like my 1v1 versus that. That's like calculating a risk. But it's bullshit. It's like it's all a fucking roulette shit show with the arms race buffs in the beginning or also mid game. Like running into these buffs is sketch as fuck. Also, the buff zones are super small, and then in the middle of the map, which means you're turbo committed into it. So yeah, I think I mean, if they want to keep the game mode in the game, 100%, they should definitely. I mean, they have a spreadsheet. They know the numbers. They know that this fucking mode has probably an average game time that's 1 minute lower than all other modes. And the easy way of fixing it is not spawning buffs in the middle of the fucking map in the first minute. It's very simple. Just the first two zones that are normally in the middle, just make them one buff on each side on another flank. Very simple. So the game develops for like at least 2.5, 3 minutes, and then you can spawn the shitty buffs in the middle of the map. Very simple. That's what I would go for. And also like distribute the buffs equally on the flanks, always, because that's really unfair if you and your team, or yeah, your team on your flank does a really good job and you kill like 2, 3, 4 enemy ships, and then you're essentially greeted by Wargaming saying, go fuck yourself, man. We're not gonna randomly spawn a buff there, which means all the work you've done is for nothing because your dipshit team on the other side decided to be absolutely tragically stupid, and yeah, that's where the next 6, 7 buffs spawn. So they're completely kitted out by the time you clash with the enemy flank, which is essentially mid-game in World of Warships. Like, both flanks play their shit, kill enemies, get objectives, whatever, and then you meet up in the middle of the map and you have the mid-game, which is very interesting. That's exactly why we play World of Warships for, so we have these intriguing mid to late game positions, like the map turns 180 upside down, whatever not. It's worthless in arms race. It's fucking worthless. If the other side runs into you with 6, 7 more buffs, it's over, man. You're not gonna fucking win this. It's so unlikely you win it. It's stupid. And it's just RNG based shit. So getting the mode is already RNG based. The buffs are RNG based. Your fucking destroyers are inting half the time, so your destroyer and intelligence is essentially RNG based. Which brings me to the next thing, like damage records. Are damage records worth anything after the introduction of arms race? No, they're not. Because since arms race is in no way somewhat predictable, and in general, like just pumping record damage numbers out way easier, unless you show, or unless it's known that a certain damage number is non-arms race, it's worthless in my opinion. Like this game here is my highest damage, but it's worthless. It's just like the random arms race game out of like 400-500 arms race games I've played now, where like 80% were stomps and shit. It's like the game where I randomly get to farm every single enemy and their grandmother for free. Wow. Is amazing, right? Like, wow, I've cool damage record, I guess. It's, by the way, the damage I'm having here on Minotaur is like, I mean, it's actually quite interesting because it's a good argument that it doesn't matter what kind of ship you play. If you just get the right scenario in arms race, you can deal 1,000,000,000,000 damage with every single ship. To be honest, high performing ships without arms race are actually counterproductive, because if I get a triple reload randomly on a con in this game, like, I'm killing the enemy team and I'm just winning the game outright. I'm not gonna get that amount of damage. The reason that I like the fact that I don't have HE and I can't burn down these people, like, I don't know if any of these battleships have fire prevention, because my entire team has never shot HE at them either. Like, we don't know if these people would, like, essentially insta DCP one fire, get set on a triple by a con in 2 seconds with a reload boost and just burn out. Like, I'm just playing AP only here, which, I mean, it kind of makes the damage interesting because it's literally all AP alpha. Like, I also only have 2 torpedo hits, like, just Minotaur spamming AP. But yeah, it shows that you can do it in any ship. Like, I don't even have fire damage. Though, as I said, like, it would be questionable if fire damage in this game wouldn't actually be counterproductive for a record number. If you're also going to see that if the game plays out a bit different, or especially like if my Iwami would essentially bait for me, or like offer himself, or if, like, for example, there's going to be a Haru in the end that essentially 1-for-1 games on me because the game is kind of over, but I could still, like, farm massive amounts of damage. So if some small things, especially like my Iwami, would have played a bit different, this game is unironically like 600k potential. I mean, it's definitely 550 because the position I had was like, you will see it's prawn for me to just 1-for-1 torp a GK that's going to rush me later on. But theoretically, if my Iwami baits at the right time for me, this could have been 600k, which just shows, like, damage records are completely disconnected. You just have to have this one random arms race game, and the numbers can be anything. Like, literally anything on any ship. Like, you could have fucking Shimakaze with 400k. It's very unlikely, actually, because it's only Alpha Strike. I guess you one-shot people then. But, like, any cruiser, probably, any HE battleship, any gunboat, like, you can have, like, completely disconnected damage numbers from old records. Because the old record for this ship, I mean, the ship is out for what now? 5-6 years? 6 years? It's like, it's fucking 10 years old, essentially. The oldest record, I probably would assume that's an arms race game too, but I don't know. It's like 415 and 413 were the record numbers on this ship. I'm 75k fucking clear of that. 70 fucking 5k. Like, if you look at the stacked games between, like, the old record for 15 and, like, down to 380k, there's a lot of games. Like, that's exactly what Minotaur always was limited at. What it maxed out as in damage. You could see that on other ships too. Like, you can see it, or you could see it with all the old ships that have tons of games, like Zhao, Hindenburg. Like, all of these ships kind of have a certain region of damage that they could reach, and it was, like, essentially impossible to breach it by randomly 75 fucking k. Like, but now, yeah, GG's. I randomly was in this high DPM cruiser in this game of arms race, and here I am sitting with what is it in the end, like 487. So yeah, like also the damage record games like fucking Panzerknacker and all the replay channels and shit. Like if they upload damage records, it's like you click on it, and the first thing you just want to see is it arms race or not? Because if it's not arms race, it's whatever the fuck. Like, if it's arms race, I mean. Like, seriously, if it's arms race, I don't give a shit. Especially if it's arms race and super ships. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, who the fuck cares? I can do 400k in Annapolis and Condor already without arms race. It's not a problem. Like, you just spam 100 games and you get a 400k game. Especially, like, with 5 BB matchmakings and shit. Like, it's super easy. You just need that one team that sucks ass and you just murder the enemy team by yourself because these ships are so busted. Now you have arms race too. You can, like, if I spam Condor for the next 500 games, I'm probably gonna get, like, a 500k game. It's very likely. So, yeah, you just look at arms race or not. Otherwise, I fuck off. It's pointless. It's like, I don't know, man. It's like I have broken many ship damage records since arms race was released. Only by like small margins, like gunboats with, I think on NA, I had my highest Marceau or French DD gameplay in an arms race game. That was also like potentially, unironically, potentially like 440, 450, and then it turned out sadly that like the carrier decided to rather go flat to a teammate, but I had like was it like 360 in the end, 380, something like that. I don't know. It was like turbo high damage form or so, but it was just down to arms race. Because like, for example, gunboats are also something that is really, really toxic in arms race. Because if you get the right amount of heal buffs soon or early, and the right amount of reload at the same time, you're becoming some sort of unkillable fucking Spazlord demon with 10 million more DPM than usual. Because the way the buffs work, that's something I could also talk about. Like the arms race buff for surface ships, they're fine, unironically. The only thing that's a bit sketch is good players on like gunboats, like tier 10 gunboats with lots of heal buffs, because obviously the healing is better on destroyers than on battleships and cruisers. They nerfed that. It's smart, because otherwise you couldn't kill BBs if they had the same heal, percentage based. But like Kleber, Ragnar, Smaland, Marceau, they become a wee bit unkillable if you have triple heal. If you play it correctly, obviously. Like idiots still get one shot. What was it? Ah, yeah, the buffs. The buffs are absolute horseshit for carriers. Like, what the fuck is this? Like, you have 4 buffs. Yeah, 4 different buffs that all buff the damage and survivability capabilities of the armament of a carrier. The heal and the HP make the planes unkillable, especially since you lose your AA in general, like forever, if you get HE spammed. The reload is plane recovery time, and the damage is obviously damage numbers. So, yeah, you just deal more damage then. By the way, here it's like I want to reverse back to the rock. I mean, I shouldn't have gone that far away. Now the Harugumo 1-for-1 games. If he smokes and I can pop a radar, I'm dark afterwards and I can live. But he doesn't smoke, he essentially just kills himself here, but he kills me in return. I mean, he also has like... Yeah, well. Look, the 67k GK would have been what I wanted to torp here. And then I would have been 550 probably. If I live there and I can reverse deep enough to the rock, this guy can't lob me anymore. If I have like 10k left, he can't kill me with overpens. He's probably gonna run around, which he's going to do anyways. And the bigger issue is the Iwami here. This guy is like still on nearly 60k HP, just like doing nothing. If this guy would have been somewhere around here and I could have reversed back to the rock, this really is a potential 600k game. Like, no joke. I mean, the GK, even if he sits on the other side of the rock, doesn't matter. I farm 50k here. There's still a 40k Roan running around. Like, the Shabur's gonna come through. There's so much shit I could have farmed. There's so much shit. Like, there's still probably like 300k on the board here. Easy. Yeah, but, I mean, if I would have gotten even more lucky, I mean, we would have had the fucking dementia game of the century here, like absolutely randomly running 550, 600k and an AP only cruiser. Would have been pretty weird though. In any case, can fast forward the game a bit. The buffs all increase the ability of a carrier to fuck people by wide margins, by the way. Like Malta with heal buffs is disgusting. Most AAs don't even shoot down a single plane anymore because the base HP of the plane squads is so high that you don't shoot shit down. The strikes get more damage. The strikes, like Malta and other carriers, get like insane plane recovery time, so you never deplane them. Where the fuck is our AA buff? Like, where the fuck is arms race buff increasing AA? Like, is it like what? How? How can you introduce an entire mode that just buffs carriers, buffs every ship, but it doesn't buff the counter to it? Like, look, even if you get a damage buff, you actually get damage increase on your depth charges. Like, even submarines get to be and the reload is giving you reload of the airstrike armament or depth charge preparation time. Like the ASW airstrike is getting faster reload if you get a reload buff. So even submarines have to oblige to the rules. Guess what doesn't have to follow the fucking rules of arms race buffs? Carriers and their counter. Because carriers only get buffs. They don't have a downside if other people get buffs. Because nothing increases the fucking AA. It's hilarious. And on top of this, their planes get invincible while we lose our AA permanent. What the fuck is this? Like, that's also like 30% of the arms race. Like, okay, they have like 80-90% stomps anyway in arms race that are completely worthless. Like, you get barely your damage, GG's, everything is over. Best part, when there's a carrier and an arms race game goes late. I mean, it's only like 1 out of 5 games that goes late, but enemy has a carrier, he's stacked with buffs, say goodbye to your fun. Say goodbye to any enjoyment in the late game, say goodbye to everything. It's fucking horseshit. Certain carriers, most carriers late game, just go back to port. Like, if an Hakuryu comes with his triple HP, triple heal, double damage, Torp Squadron, full Torp Squadron, just fuck off. Just go back to port, bro. Like, 10 minutes into the game, you probably have like 60-70% AA left. You're not gonna shoot down shit, dude. He has a heal on the Torps anyway, but the base heal, if it's triple heal, triple HP, the base heal, he can hover inside of your AA on like 80% of the ships and not lose a single plane. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? These handicapped, literally, I think they believe that CVs are just a bunch of handicapped people. I swear to God. Like, it can't be. Anyways. That's the end screen, it's 487. As I said, I will think about this game a whole lot because, weirdly enough, it was actually a game where a lot more was even possible. Like, even thinking about that, yeah, like, I personally believe if I played it maybe a bit different, if in the end I lucked a bit out, like, maybe the Haru smokes, maybe the Iwami actually stays close to me and eats the core first for me, or the Haru for me. Yeah, that's probably all-time damage record numbers here. Which, by the way, as I said, it's worthless. It's arms race. It's this one arms race game. Like, I'm going to play another 300-400 arms race games. Nothing is gonna happen, and then I'm going to get another one of these games where I'm hopefully in the correct chip. I don't know. Maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't. I don't know. XP wise, we're obviously not that crazy, just 2.7 in a loss, which I mean for 487k, mainly because it's only 2 kills. Kills are a multiplier, so if I had like a Kraken here randomly, I would probably be at 3.5k base, most likely, because they're a multiplier. The damage is like a base value, the kills multiply it, but it also like is a lot of damage on battleships and low tier battleships, low tier cruisers. I mean 66k out of the Cherbourg and stuff. But yeah, it worked out all like perfectly, right? You could see it. There was heals on the enemy team. There was heals on my side. The heals on my side, just a quick mention. Like I had a triple heal, and I don't know how many HP buffs I had. It was like either 2 or 3, I think. 2. You can see the damage received. Like, what the fuck is that? It's 163k. Like, hello? What the fuck? Arms Race is so disconnected from any sort of damage numbers before Arms Race was introduced. It's not even funny. But it's only like randomly disconnected. Like, most games are actually worse. And then you have this 1 out of 5 games where you get a lot of fucking damage. But Arms Race is not increasing average numbers, by the way. No chance. I said it earlier. Like, most of the games end up being stomps. And that's also why the average damage in arms race is actually lower. That's also why they don't change the mode, I think. I think they're really happy with this. They're like, yeah, let the fucking idiots int like 3 out of 5, 4 out of 5 games. Then no one is really caring about the fact that the buffs are actually quite crazy, and normally you could get lots of 4 or 500k random fucking piece of shit games. Like, let's just like let them int for the stupid buff zones, and like let's just completely randomize the buff spawns and shit like that. Yeah, yeah, that's good. That's good. It's good for our spreadsheet, bro. Yeah, it's really good. Um, but yeah, you could see, for example, a Shabur has been farmed for 66k, and in the end he popped up with 40k anyway. So I theoretically could have farmed a Shabur for over 100k. I mean, that's not normal. Uh, I mean, that's in normal games, that's as much as I get out of a tier 10 battleship, like I don't know, a GK. If someone else shoots him and I shoot him, I get like 100k out of him if I'm lucky. It's like here I can get it out of a Shabur potentially. Like, well, this is so fucking cringe. Um, yeah. Well, I mean that's it for arms race and damage records. To sum it up, I personally think damage records are, unless you like upload the game and it's like standard battle or what is it, domination. I think most uh, I don't watch arms race records because it's worthless. It's like already know he lucked, or like the person lucked out on enemy team and your team and the buffs, and it's like super super rare to recreate that because it's not player skill based. Actually, heavy player skill and having a good ship in this situation is counterproductive. As I said, like if I had HE here with all those buffs, I probably would have killed people way too fast because of the triple reload and shit. Like I would have just burned and fucked people to crap. So yeah, it's something completely outside of your influence, and that's what I hate about it. Like I have seen multiple replays of unironic, like mediocre Blunicum green players in super ships getting like 400, 450k damage, and I'm like, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, if at least if it's on a super ship, you can see it's a super ship, right? Because it's like its own tier of ships. But yeah, you never know now. You never know unless it's uploaded, and I personally just I don't know. If you play the game 5, 6 years and try to hunt high damage games in normal modes with normal HP pools, and you have reached a point where you had a lot of high damage games, and it's really nice to go for that solo smoked, even like smoke botting is funnier, like more interesting than this. I mean, you can definitely see if someone has a smoke botted game, right? Because it's like division. um, but arms race is like, I don't know, it's like tomorrow someone could just do the 600k con the game if it's the 6 BB matchmaking with 4 super BBs, and the buffs just work out magically in his favor, and his team is demented, enemy team is demented, but all are pacifists, so no one shoots kind of, and then he farms all of by himself. Anyway, yeah, that's it for my little rant, and I'll see you on stream, I guess. Take care and have a nice weekend.